Hello, everyone. Kevin Richardson from NeverStrip. Welcome to our NeverStrip Micron Sealers overview. This video is to sort of give you about a hopefully under 10-minute snapshot of our Micron Sealers, the where, the what, the why, and a little bit of the how. So we'll just get right into it. What are Micron Sealers? They are largely inorganic material, water-based. They're for sealing all types of non-carpet flooring. And micron is in reference to the thinness of the film on the floor. So typically we would refer to a measurement of mil, and that would be for epoxies, urethanes, high builds, that type of thing. So there's 25.4 microns in 1 mil of thickness. At 2 to 3 applications of the Micron sealers, which is typical, you'd be between 3.25 to 5 or just under 5 microns versus floor finish, where you do 4 to 6 applications, you'd be at 20 to 30 microns. So you're essentially at about 6 times the thickness. 20 to 30 microns, you're essentially right around 1 mil of thickness. So why do microns never require stripping? Or probably a better question, why do you have to strip floor finish? So floor finish is a softer coating, and it's made up of largely organic materials. It's petroleum based, and because of those ingredients, it's prone to yellowing. It's prone to holding onto soil, so soils will actually penetrate into the floor finish, and that's why you have to do scrub and recoats. Essentially, you're scrubbing off those 1 or 2 top layers of floor finish to remove the soil that's penetrated into the floor finish. 1 or 2 new coats is added, and then over time, the cycle continues. And then at one point, you're having to completely remove the floor finish and just start that whole cycle over again. And it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So the Micron sealers are a complete paradigm shift in floor care technology versus floor finish. They're not a urethane. They're not floor finish. They really sit in their own category of floor care solutions. So the sealers do not yellow indoors or outdoors. The sealers do not hold soils. They don't allow soils to penetrate into the sealer. Soils sit on top of the sealer, and the removal of those soils is obviously much easier just with routine maintenance. And the sealers do not build up over time. So yes, there is a build to the applications, but in comparison to really most things that are offered on the market, it's inconsequential. So essentially, it would take 40 applications of our sealer just to get to the thickness of a human hair. Micron sealer family consists of rubber seal, stone terrazzo and concrete seal, tile seal, and vinyl seal. And last but not least, liquid grip. So where are these by name? Where are they used? Tile seal for ceramic and porcelain, brick and pavers, vinyl seal for all the resilient floors outside of rubber. And then for that, we have rubber seal, stone terrazzo, and concrete seal for those surfaces. And then our liquid grip, which is strictly a product for addressing traction or slip fall issues. Micron sealers features and benefits. So for the customer, for the contractor, you're completely eliminating the activity of having to strip the floor anymore. So depending on what the floor is and what's there now before applying the sealer, yes, you may have to strip the floor. But once the Micron sealers are applied, at that point, you're no longer having to do any strips. So the application is very quick. It's very simplistic. 10-minute dry times between coats. So where that would vary is if you're burnishing in between coats, you want to give it 20 to 25 minutes of dry time. 3 coats is typical versus 4 to 6 coats for conventional floor finish. It's got great traction and obviously, less ongoing labor and reduced floor care activities. So benefits to the facility, you're removing that disruption and inconvenience of having to do stripping and what's required on their end. Much more sustainable. UV resistant, again, it won't yellow, doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. Reduced maintenance visits, great traction, and a more durable, more consistent looking floor. Also, very resistant to disinfectants. And this is an extremely common complaint for floor care, or sorry, for floor finish, is what disinfectants do in deteriorating conventional floor finish. Then the core features, and this is not by any means an exhaustive list, but the sealers can be used to refresh LVT. So if you got a worn out LVT, there's a means by which you can restore that LVT and then apply the vinyl seal. It can be applied soon after the installation or right after the installation as a finish layer to protect the factory applied urethane. It's a thin, clear film that enriches colors. So you'll see in the photos that are coming up that there's always an enhancement of the appearance of the floor. The gloss is more natural, and that really refers more to stuff like terrazzo, natural stone. Easier to apply than easier to apply than urethane. So again, it's very simplistic means of applying. Simply with a you're misting it on the floor and then distributing it with a microfiber pad. Now, in comparison to floor finish really is not a viable option for LVT, and the reason for that is LVT is typically sold as a low or no maintenance floor solution. So as soon as you're introducing floor finish to that scenario, you've now made that customer's low maintenance floor a high maintenance floor. So on both of those, not a great way to go. So floor finish is thicker, it's not as clear. And we mentioned earlier how it's going to take on and allow soils to penetrate. So obviously that's going to dull out the colors and just give it a more muted look. Floor finish can have a very plasticky, synthetic type appearance to it, and you've got the much longer drying times. So Micron Sealers applications and systems. So we got clean and seal for tile. So this example on the right, or sorry, on the left here, this was simply deep cleaned, rinsed and extracted. And then there was 2 or 3 applications of the tile seal. And you can see the enriched appearance here. It's going to make for easier cleaning, and they're still going to have the great traction. Tile and grout restoration. So the added component here, there's more work on the front end as far as the cleaning steps go before this system is put in. But from what you can see here, the added step is applying the urethane-based color sealer to the grout. And then the whole floor is sealed with the tile seal. So when we're saying it's resistant to urine, this is a fully sealed floor. So your grout's been sealed, your tile has been sealed, the whole floor is sealed off from allowing urine to actually penetrate. So a much cleaner, more sanitary environment to be walking into. Obviously, that's going to reduce odors and also do away with unsightly grout. Clean and seal for resilient, non-rubber. So this is simply, this is actually, all the soil you see here is from construction. So this is a newly installed, or was a newly installed LVT. The floor was simply deep cleaned, and then there was 3 applications of the vinyl seal, and this is how the sealer looks unburnished. So we also have a lower sheen for the sealers. And you know how some of these LVTs have a almost a matte appearance. So if a customer is they want to stick closer to that sort of lower sheen, it's not a matte, but it is a lower sheen satin. That is something that's available. So in applying the sealer, you're going to protect the factory applied urethane from the scratches and scuffs and marks. You've got a surface that's much easier to repair and refresh with the vinyl seal versus the factory applied urethane. So here's a good example of a LVT that required a restoration. So if you go back to the previous slide, what it was a clean and seal. So this floor obviously would be cleaned. Then you would go over the floor with a surface prep pad, and that step would be done dry. And that would help even out these gouges and scratches and that sort of thing. If there's heavy gouges, you're not going to fully remove those from the surface. They've gone past that factory applied urethane. But what it's going to help to do is just level them out a little bit more so that when the sealer's applied, they're barely visible. Sorry. So any of the small scratches you're going to be able to take out with that surface prep pad, but the heavier gouges are you're not going to be able to fully repair those. So you're going to have a nice looking floor, easy to refresh again, or sorry, you have the advantage of not having to replace versus you can actually refresh this surface. And obviously you got a floor that's much easier to maintain versus what was here previously, or even what you have just with the factory applied urethane. Replace floor finish on VCT. We're introducing another product here on this slide, which is the Micron primer. And that's something that's going to go down ahead of the vinyl seal on something like VCT. And that's just to sort of close up the pores on the floor so that the sealer is sitting on top of the surface rather than it getting pulled into the VCT. And it's also going to help add to the gloss level. So you're going to have less maintenance, which obviously is going to lead to less cost in maintaining the floor, and you're completely removing any need for ongoing stripping. So clean and seal with rubber, for rubber. So this was simply cleaned up. Whoop. There we go. So this was simply deep cleaned, and then there was 2 or 3 applications done. And again, you can see how it's got that nice enriched appearance. They've now got a surface that's much easier to keep clean, and they still got that great traction that rubber offers on its own. So polished seal and burnished terrazzo. So this floor, I can't remember if this had floor finish on it or not. If it did, obviously that would have been stripped. Then the floor was honed and polished with our diamond encrusted pads. Once that was finished, then the floor was sealed with 2 applications of our stone terrazzo concrete seal, and each application was burnished. And again, you can see great looking appearance. Never requires stripping, and they have the nice gloss shine that they want there. So refresh dull previously polished concrete. The concourse outside of Dick's in this mall here, or Dick's Sporting Goods, they were actually looking at possibly having a company come in and repolish this whole area. So our customer went in and gave them the option to have this. And how our customer got there was they simply scrubbed the floor, deep clean the floor. Once it was dried, rinse and extracted, they did 2 applications of the stone terrazzo concrete seal, and they burnished each application. And you can see now they got a great looking floor. It's at a fraction of the cost, fraction of the inconvenience. They were able to do this in one night, one shift, versus it would have been multiple shifts to do this with planetary equipment. And they also have a floor that's very easy to maintain. Similar process here. You can see how beat up this marble was. So would have cleaned up the floor, honed and polished this with our diamond encrusted pads, 2 applications of our stone terrazzo concrete seal, and again, each application was burnished. So the great thing here now, all they have to do is maintain the sealer. You're never having to go back down. And this also goes for the previous video, the terrazzo. You're not having to go back down to the floor and do all those polishing steps again. Now you're just maintaining the sealer. So clean and seal natural stone, again with our stone terrazzo concrete seal. This floor previously had, you can't really see it in the before picture, but it did have multiple coats of floor finish on it. So this was stripped. Because this is extremely porous as a sandstone floor, there was actually our Densaprime put down first, and that's typically used for porous concrete. But you can certainly use it on any stone terrazzo or concrete that's quite porous. So it was sealed up. The pores were sealed up with Densaprime, and then there was 3 applications of the stone terrazzo concrete seal, and this is unburnished. So again, you can see the nice rich colors there. They now have a floor that's much easier to maintain and is protected. So last, wet for traction with liquid grip. So this is the only one of our sealers, our Micron sealers, that is applied with a roller. So they would have cleaned up this floor, done a deep clean. You can see they're using a square scrub and I believe a turf pad to do the cleaning. Then they would have rinsed and extracted. The way this essentially goes down is it's 2 steps. The first step has the sealer along with the aggregate. That's rolled out and it's allowed to dry for about 20-25 minutes. Then you come back and you roll another coat, and that's step 2. And that is essentially just the sealer, and that's just to sort of help lock in the aggregate. So now they have great traction. There's no more issues with slip falls, and this is a Lifetime Fitness facility, obviously the pool deck area. So again, they're not going to have issues with it yellowing, and they'll never have to do any stripping activity on this. All right, so what does the maintenance look like when you have a Micron sealer in a high demand facility? This is Baltimore Washington Airport. We've had our stone terrazzo concrete seal down here for almost 6 years now. It's on about 508,000 square feet of terrazzo. So they still auto scrub daily, dust mop, auto scrub daily. The high traffic areas are burnished 2 to 3 times a week. The low traffic areas are burnished 2 to 3 times a month. As far as reapplication of product, that only happens once a year. And what that looks like is they'll scrub up 95% of the floor. So that's the less or the low to moderate traffic areas. So that area, 95% is scrubbed up, and they do 1 new application and burnish. And then the remaining 5% also scrubbed up, but those areas get 2 applications and each application is burnished. And obviously they've completely eliminated the need for any stripping since the sealer has been applied. So that concludes our NeverStrip Micron Sealers overview. Thank you so much for joining.